I almost didn't want to make this video. So as you can tell by the title of the video, I forced myself to watch the first Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movie. And I watched this a long time ago, shortly after it came out when I was younger. And I didn't mind it then. And, you know, I thought it was an okay movie then. Oh. Here's the thing. It's not a bad movie, but it is a humongous disservice to the Ninja Turtles. Because, like, it could have been something completely different. It could have had the same story. It could have had the same type of characters. But because they own the rights to the Ninja Turtles, they slapped in the Turtles into the story. And the story isn't even original. For those of you who may not know, it's almost a direct ripoff of Amazing Spider-Man 1. Like, that's the whole plot, is Shredder and this other business guy who unfortunately is the same actor who played the banker in The Dark Knight, Zax or some crap like that, want to poison New York City so that way his company can release the cure that's somehow in the mutagen that created the Turtles, which is almost exactly what Lizard's plan was in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie with Andrew Garfield. Of the Lizard wants to poison all of New York City and turn everybody into lizards, so that way there is no flaws in the human race. And like the voices for the Turtles in this movie are okay. I don't mind the voices. I don't mind Megan Fox as April O'Neil. That was a little hard to watch, but it wasn't that bad. And then Splinter, I thought was okay. So Michael Bay's team, because it wasn't directed by Michael Bay. This first movie was not directed by Michael Bay. I do know that. It was produced by Michael Bay, so he did have a lot of say in the matter, but it wasn't directly directed by him. I'm sure he had a hand in directing it, but he was not the lead director. So I mean, you know, they kind of knew what they were doing. They definitely got the teenage aspect of it. They got all the characters with their personalities. They got what you would expect from the Turtles in terms of personality. You know, Raph is the snarky jackass, Michelangelo's the goofball, Donatello's the smart guy, and Leonardo's the fearless leader. And then Splinter is obviously the father or master in some cases. But I see people complain about the designs and stuff that they chose for Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles. No, the designs are not great, but I always commended Michael Bay for the Transformers movies because I like all 5 Transformers movies. Those are the first 3 I really like. The 4th one is not bad, and then the 5th one I consider the 5th one not that bad, even though it's definitely the weakest one of the franchise. But I always commended Michael Bay for doing something different. You know, putting his own flavor on something that's classic, like Transformers or Ninja Turtles. Like, he put his own flavor on that stuff to make something different. And because that's always what you want to do with something that's remake or a reboot or whatever. You always want to do something different. And I always commended Michael Bay for doing that with the Transformers movies and the Ninja Turtle movies that he did. Because I did watch both of them shortly after they first came out, because I was interested in them, and so was my brother at the time. But I always commended Michael Bay for trying something different with classic franchises like that. Yes, there are a big chunk of people who don't like his taste of Transformers and especially Ninja Turtles. There's so much hate for his version of the Ninja Turtles, and I can see it because, like, when I first watched this movie, it was okay. It wasn't the best movie I ever watched. It wasn't the worst movie I ever watched. It was okay. And my opinion hasn't really changed. Like, it's still an okay movie. I will watch it from time to time, but just the story and the characters, or like not even the characters, just the story just was like really weak in this first movie. It was really weak, and then the Michael Bay's production team always has this level of like dirty jokes and stuff that they throw in there. That's abundantly clear in how they portrayed Megan Fox as April O'Neil in some cases. She was literally there just to be the hot character of the movie, and it gets amplified and out of the shadows. I do know that. But it's just like some of the overall choices that they chose for this movie was just very boring and lackluster in some scenes. Like, really the only like intriguing part that was like, wow, was when they were in the lair and the lair was being destroyed when they were fighting the Shredder because they ambushed them. But the rooftop fight when they're trying to stop the toxin from going into New York, that was just, it was interesting because it was cool to see the Turtles work together as a team. But it was just, it wasn't really a great action sequence, which I know there's going to be a lot of people be like, oh, that's one of the best action sequences I've ever seen. Okay, fine. But I know Michael Bay when he comes to action sequences. One of my favorite action scenes that Michael Bay ever did was the forest battle of Transformers 2. He had a whole bunch to say in that scene, and it made Prime a badass in that scene. In this, they try to do the same thing with, like, when Raphael is fighting the Shredder, trying to save his brothers, and it's like, Raph gets his ass kicked, man, and it's like, I get that they're trying to put the weight that the Shredder is a big threat, but, like, he's just a dude in a mechanized suit. I mean, he's essentially Iron Man. I mean, obviously, yeah, you got to have the skill behind you, but at the same time, his suit is what was doing all the damage to Raphael. And that's another thing. Shredder's outfit in this first movie, I used to really praise as a kid when I was younger. I thought that was such an interesting look for Shredder. It combined, the original idea with the Shredder plus modern technology, which is exactly what they say. Those are word for word shit that they say in the movie. It's like, oh, we're going to take the old ancient design and include it with modern technology. Those are literally words that are taken directly from the movie or something along those lines. And when I remember the suit before I rewatched the movie, and it still kind of, it was like, you know what, it's not that bad, it's not that great, it's definitely not Shredder, but it's like future Shredder. And then when I watched the movie again, I'm like, nah, this not good. This not good. Like, I get what they were trying to do with it. They were trying to make it fresh. They were trying to make it their own. They were trying to do something different while also keeping some aspects the same. Because if you do look really closely, you can see the traditional Shredder blades on his mini blades that he has in this movie, because for some reason they made him look like a bird. And his overall helmet shape was similar to what Shredder's known for. But just the overall Iron Man look of it, it really did feel like they kind of like, I want you from Spider-Man, I want your plot Spider-Man, I want your armor Iron Man, we're going to tweak it up a bit, we're going to add some knives to it, and we're going to add the Hulk general design for all four turtles, because we're going to have them all muscle-bound freaks that are bulletproof. And, okay, well, now we're going to add Natasha Romanoff, or just standard, basic, hot chick for April O'Neil. And oh yeah, we gotta have the dork. Let's get Will Arnett. That's essentially what this movie felt like. And Will Arnett was probably the best part of the movie. That's just because Will Arnett is such a great actor. I like him in almost every single movie I see him in, but he's usually like the best parts of the movies that I cannot stand that have him in it. This is one of those times I don't really like this movie, but it's not a bad movie. So let's put it this way: I don't mind this movie, but I definitely wouldn't put it up with a higher list of my preferred watchings. So, but again, Will Arnett is the best part of the movie. At least to me, he was. He was the best part of the movie for me, even though he did not portray Vern the way he was supposed to be portrayed, or portrayed, or whatever you wanted to, however the word goes. But like just the overall subplot, the overall story in general was just not there. It was just a really lackluster movie, and it's like, it's one of those things where it has potential to be good, but at the same time, it's like, I respect Michael Bay and his team and everybody else who was involved with this movie for trying to do something different. After so many different versions of the Turtles, it is so hard to do something different, and I commend them for that. That's one of the things I think people are misunderstanding about Mutant Mayhem. Yes, it is a drastic change from what you're used to, but at the same time, it's doing something different. And I will do a whole video on that whole god-awful trailer later in the future. But I do commend studios like that for tampering with stuff like that, to just put their own flavor on it, do something different. And, because it's just so hard to do stuff like that differently, because with Ninja Turtles, it's very easy to screw something like that up, as you can tell by this movie, or these two films. But then, if you tamper with it the right way, it can be really, really well. Or it can work in your favor really well. Look at the Dark Knight trilogy. Everyone calls the Dark Knight trilogy by the Dark Knight, which is the second movie in that trilogy. You don't call it the Batman Begins trilogy, you call it the Dark Knight trilogy. That's because that grounded, realistic take of Batman was definitely different than what anything else that came out before was, but it was different enough to where it brought new people in and made them interested in that franchise. This was just like, okay, Turtles show, and real quick, the Turtles don't show up till 21 minutes into the movie. I mean, yeah, you get some snippets of footage, or where you can barely see them, but they don't actually show up in clear view on screen for 20 minutes in this movie, and which it almost falls into that cliche thing of CGI cartoon characters, like the Tom and Jerry movie that came out 2 years ago. It wasn't a Tom and Jerry movie, it was a movie with Tom and Jerry in it. That's kind of what this felt like. It felt like this is an April O'Neil movie with turtles. That's what it felt like. But it makes sense. You want to set up April as the main character. You want to have the turtles be there, but the turtles are the main characters because April O'Neil is not in the title. So I'm going to go through all the characters and just in personality and in voices and performances. April O'Neil, okay, yes, it's Megan Fox, but the way she was acting, I don't know what she was doing with her voice. It did not sound right. Will Arnett as Vern, okay, fine. He was probably the best part of the movie. The actress who played Karai was extremely lackluster in this movie. Because I like Karai as a character. This actress did not pull it off. Now I don't remember Rise of or Out of the Shadows because I only watched it one time because of how bad it was. I never watched it again. yes, before anybody says anything, I will force myself to rewatch it again, just so I can do a review like this. Um, all four turtles, like I said earlier, they do give them their own personalities. They do give them their own flavor, and they do change things up a bit drastically, but in to show that each one has their own personality instead of, oh, it's just a palette swap of all four turtles, because that's what it's been for the last however many years it was between 1984 and 2014, when that about 20-year difference, 30-year difference, it's gonna be something different. You're gonna do something different. But between then and 84 and 14, all the turtles basically look the same. That's something that was always a staple. They started off with all red bandanas. They all looked the same. The 1987 show came along. They still all looked the same, with just different colors. And then, the live action movies, they all look the same. Some of which have slightly different features and whatnot, but they still all look the same, or have the same attires and whatnot. And then the Power Ranger style show remake or whatever, or relaunch, had them do stuff a little bit differently and included a female turtle, which was probably the weirdest move that they ever did, because I remember watching The Next Mutation, and I watched one episode of it, and I turned it off halfway through. It was so bad. Nothing against Venus de Malo, but that's also what killed Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird's relationship as friends, or as turtle creators. And then, 2003's Ninja Turtles, they all look the same. Yes, they have drastically different personalities, but they still generically all look the same. 2012's, they tried to do something different. They redesigned a lot of the features that each turtle has, but they still kind of all look the same in terms of their bandana or whatnot. And then 2014's Michael Bay movie, or Michael Bay produced movie, gave Raphael a do-rag, Michelangelo pants and glasses, and all this necklace stuff. Donatello gave him glasses, and all this stuff on his back, and it's and then Leonardo's got chest armor. They did stuff differently, and again, I commend the Michael Bay team for trying to do something drastically different, but they should not have done that right out the door. If you're going to do something drastically different like that, fine. But start it off as something that's familiar, so that way you can slowly or gradually throw it as, okay, you're going to start off like this, now bam, you slowly be like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this. You customize the turtle as you go. Not boom, right off the back, you look exactly like this. So I don't even want to talk about the ending with this movie, because it's so confusing. I like I said, I watched this movie from time to time when I was a kid. I've seen it about 4 times total in my entire life, and each time I've watched it, the ending just does not make any sense. Where the hell did the turtles get their small minivan that somehow fits these 6-foot hulks in the back of that small van? And then the whole ooze thing, mutagen thing that Shredder somehow survived. He plummeted 57 stories and made a crater in the middle of a street of New York. And the last shot you see of him is he has 1 drop of mutagen on his finger, and he simply makes a fist. And then his wrist goes limp. That's it. That's the last you see of the shirt. It's can you explain how he survived that? The man fell 57 stories. Yes, he was wearing an armored suit, but that does not mean that you would survive that type of fall. You don't survive stuff like that. You just simply die from something like that. Even if you're wearing an armored suit. You might live, but it's very, very, very unlikely. If you do live, you're going to be paralyzed from like your neck down forever, and you're essentially going to be a vegetable the rest of your life. So that was something I never understood. And yes, I know it's just teasing, so that way they can do Bebop and Rocksteady in the sequel and have Tyler Perry be freaking Baxter Stockman and everything, which I thought was so stupid. But that whole movie was stupid, so you know what? I guess it fits. From what I remember, that movie was stupid. I could be wrong. It could end up being really good. I don't remember. I only watched it one time. But so it's just, and then the whole scene with like Michelangelo accidentally blowing up Vern's car, and then like they have to immediately go on. It's like there's that again that it just doesn't make any sense. Like how I get that the turtles somehow managed to get like all these high gadgets and stuff when they live in a sewer, but how do you get an entire small van that should not fit even one turtle because of how big they are, with them being full-on jacked up hulks? But yeah, it's like a clown car effect that is able to fit all four of them in one convenient thing. I do not understand that. Somebody please tell me how the hell that's possible in the comments, because I don't understand it. And I know I'm overlooking it because it's a kids movie. Well, it's marketed towards kids, but that's not actually a kids movie. So like I know it's a movie, and I know it's the whole Ninja Turtles franchise just has several plot holes in general. But for me, like, that whole ending doesn't make sense. Like, everything between Shredder falling off the roof, or the Turtles saving the day, saving Master Splinter, and then everything after that just is like, why? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't need to be happening, man. And then, don't even get me started with the Vern and April O'Neil love subplot. That was just so dumb and so tacked on. You can so tell that both Megan Fox and Will Arnett were not really caring about that entire subplot, because you can just see it in their acting and their faces. That's like, oh god, we gotta include this just to make Michael Bay happy, and everybody else who's involved and whatnot. And it felt so lackluster and so tacked on. And it was just one of those things that's like, okay, we get it. These two are supposed to fall in love at some point, but everybody knows the standard. April O'Neil usually ends up marrying Casey Jones, which I'm not even going to talk about him in the future video when I do review that movie, because I'm going to say it right now, I hate Casey Jones and Out of the Shadows. That was by far the dumbest inclusion of any Ninja Turtles movie, because he was just a regular guy in a hockey mask. And it wasn't just the fact that he was a regular guy. He was scrawny. He was weak. He looked like somebody I could beat up. Hell, he looked like something my freaking 10-year-old, my little sister could beat up. And yes, I do know my sister's age. I'm ranting and raving and have a brain fart. But it's like, my sister could beat this guy up. He looked so pathetic. When I picture Casey Jones, I picture a bigger guy, not, like Hulk size, but a steroided used guy, strong enough to whoop up or beat up people in New York and be a masked vigilante. When I can't think of any particular body type, but I picture like somebody who works out a lot, but not like overly big, beating up people in the streets of New York. That's what I picture Casey Jones. This guy in Out of Shadows did not do that for me. He did not look like Casey Jones at all. But that's in the next video or next time. So, but like, it was just, this whole movie was just very lackluster. It was just kind of there to exist, give you guys, give people introduction to the characters that everybody knows by that point. And I do commend the team for doing something different. It's just the plot and how they portrayed the characters were kind of lackluster. And the fight scenes, the fight scenes were okay. There were some that were better. And then just the way how strong and how literally bulletproof they made the turtles, I thought was so dumb. And like I said, the ending and basically a lot of this movie I thought was really dumb. The only thing I really liked about it was the way that the turtles had their personalities portrayed, because Raph is very represented by his comic book counterpart Donatello, smart, Michelangelo, goofy. And then Leonardo, brave and strong. But and then Splinter obviously having to be a father figure. And I always see Splinter as abusive in this movie. Like, yes, there's that one scene where he does choke Raphael and Michelangelo for like 2 seconds, but it's like just to get a point across. That's not abusive. And the whole Haichi or whatever torture chamber room, that's an act, from what I know, now I could be wrong, that is an actual Japanese ninjutsu punishment, so that way it teaches a ninja discipline. So I could be wrong, but I want to say that's an actual disciplinary action for a ninja in Japan. I could be wrong. But like I said, this whole movie was just extremely lackluster. It was just kind of there. It wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a great movie. It was just kind of meh. It was kind of meh. It was that's what this whole video boils down to. It was just there. It just exists. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of there. So for Michael Bay's produced team of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2014, I'm going to give this movie like 3 out of 10 stars. The designs, whatever, they did something different. Functionality with them being bulletproof, I thought was really stupid. And then just the plot felt way too much like Amazing Spider-Man 1, which came out like the same year. And it was just, it really did. It felt so lackluster. It kind of just was there just to be there. And that's my final verdict. Like, there were a couple interesting scenes. One of the things Michael Bay is so criticized on with the Transformers movies is the overuse of slow motion, which I can understand, but like, it's also what makes certain shots in Transformers look really cool. And Ninja Turtles, it's used better. I will say that it's used better. There are moments where like it would look cool in slow motion, but it's not really needed. And then there's like 1 or 2 other things where it's like, okay, yeah, that did not need to be slow motion. But most of the time, it's used tastefully. But in Transformers, it was all over the place. But that's also one of the coolest things about those movies, in my opinion, is because, like, especially in the first Transformers movie, when Ironhide is dodging missiles and whatever, and he blasts the street, that entire slow motion shot is one of my favorites to date, and I don't care what anybody says about it. So, like I said, 3 out of 10 stars for the 2014's Ninja Turtle movie. It was okay. I'm dreading doing Out of the Shadows because I remember that movie from remember bits and pieces from that movie when we first watched it when I was a younger kid, and I hated that movie. I thought it was so dumb and completely is what on the Ninja Turtles brand. But you know what? I'll suffer. I will give it another shot. Who knows? I may end up liking it. I highly doubt that, though, because I absolutely hated that movie when I first saw it. But from what I heard, the Michael Bay team did take criticisms and interpret that into the second movie, so maybe it is better. I don't know. But anyway, let me know what you guys thought of 2014's Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles movie. And is this one of your favorite movies? Because if so, I'm so sorry for crapping on it. But if you guys agree with me that it's not a bad movie, it's not a great movie, it's just kind of meh movie, let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. This was a way too long video, and I will catch you guys all next time on Ultimate Deadpool. Peace out. You guys are awesome. I'll catch you guys all later. Bye.